Welcome back to Tascam Super Monoblock, a channel about repairing and using multi-track cassette recorders. We're continuing our teardown here of a Tascam 464. We've already looked at the upper part of the case, the cassette transport, the mixer, these kind of things. So we're in the lower half here. I have the schematic for this. I haven't honestly done a great deal of study of it. So I'm going to be making some assumptions about what does what based on systems that I'm more familiar with. Spent more time with the schematics, principally the Tascam 244 and 246. But I'll give you a rough idea, if you're like looking at something like this and it just looks like a lot of complication, you're not really sure what you're looking at, and some sort of idea of what everything is doing here. So this one, we've got a transformer located inside it. That point there, that's the mains. I'm not plugged in. If you touch that with your bare fingers and that was plugged in, you could potentially die, so don't do that. That's hitting a transformer. So basically you've got two big coils of wire around a magnet. The ratio between those coils will give us a significant jump down. So say you've got 240 volts coming in our case here, and say you've got 1,000 wire wraps there and only 100 here, then it'll make the voltage 10 times smaller, right? So that'll drop that down from 240 volts to 24 volts, right? I don't know if it's those are the values. It might be significantly less than that. This will be the power section, and really what we've got is we're going to be sending 12 volts or thereabouts to the motors in the transport that would normally sit there. Operational amplifiers, these little integrated circuits, these little black horizontal bits all over the place, they'll have a positive 15 and a minus 15 direct current that make them work. They're basically the things that amplify your audio signal. And there's going to be 5 volts that power LEDs. There's no LEDs here, but there are LEDs on the other half of the case, and their power will be coming from here to here, through here, and up through these cables, and that's how they get their power. When I'm saying this, it drops down from 240 volts to, 24 volts. Maybe it's less, maybe it's a bit more than that. And that's still alternating current. So this thing here, I'm pretty sure, is a bridge rectifier. So if you don't know what a bridge rectifier is, look it up. But basically, that and these capacitors, these will be taking your AC wavy electricity and turning it into a straight line. That it's not going from plus something volts to negative something volts over time, making a shape like that in an oscilloscope. It's always, let's say 20 volts. It doesn't change over time. So if you look at it in an oscilloscope, then you'll get a straight line. If you look at it with a multimeter, the number that's showing on the screen will stay the same. When you're turning that AC into DC, it's not going to be completely straight. It's going to be a bit of a wave to it, and that wave can manifest itself in a buzz that leaks into the audio part of the system. One of the steps that the AC goes through in order to become good quality DC is it'll go through voltage regulators. Voltage regulators look like this. They're 3-pin things. Don't know if you can see in there. See this component here that I'm pointing my finger at right in the edge of the screen? That's a voltage regulator as well. Usually they've got this metal plate with a hole for a screw in them, because a lot of times they generate a lot of heat, and that needs to be attached to a large metal plate in order to dissipate the heat. It's a heat sink. So we can see here in this power section that we've got 3 voltage regulators. You maybe can't see that, but they're screwed to a metal plate under here, and that's the heat sink. Maybe that's positive and negative 15, and then this one that I was pointing at over there, that's the 12 volt regulator for the motor. In fact, I'm pretty sure those have voltage regulators as well. It's a 3 motor system, so that's probably 1 voltage regulator per system, is what I'm guessing. Anyway, so transformer, we're making a large AC voltage into a smaller AC voltage. It's passing through this rectifier and these capacitors. That's making it less of a AC signal, more of a straight one. These voltage regulators are making that slightly wavy one into a much straighter one. And then the power is being distributed via this cable to this board, which is your record amplifier, your playback amplifier, your DBX, noise reduction companding, decoding and encoding. I'm not sure if the headphone amplifier is on there or if it's on the mixer board, but certainly that's the socket for the headphones. It's down there. So I'll just bring that up so you can see that properly. And then this part here will be the logic and everything for your control of the transport. I've got a daughter board connected. See, there's a cable coming from the power section around here to there, and then there's the cables that go into the transport there. So that'll be power for those motors. But then we've got to have this ribbon cable which is sending logic information to that, so that you've got your buttons up here, that's sending a signal down here. It's being dealt with by this NEC chip. Looks like it's the kind of little computer that deals with all the play, rewind. That's probably got your rehearsal and auto punching in it. All your other functions are probably located in that big microchip there. And so based on what that little microchip is thinking, then some of the information will go through that ribbon, and that will control what the transport is doing. There's a few giveaways about like which section of this PCB does what. You can see there's a certain amount of not symmetry but similarity. 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. See how they've got a group of, like, you know, you can see there's a big inductor there, a big inductor there, and a round one. That pattern happens 3 times, and then the occurrence of this chip 4 times with this clump of burgundy capacitors. So you can see that's going to correspond to track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4. In fact, it probably says it on the board somewhere. So that's telling me that's your record and playback amplifiers. Because there's a little variable resistor here, and it's got written on the PCB time adjust. The DBX is basically a compander. It compresses and then expands in order to kind of get more out of the noise floor. Anyone who's used compressors know that there are time functions to a compressor or an expander. So that's the trim pot for those. So that's what tells me that this is the DBX section here. And then down here, you can see there's a trim pot here for record level, there's a trim pot here for playback level, and playback EQ. So that's telling me that this clump is to do with your record and playback. And down here there's trim pots for bias. Pro bias oscillators, 1 per channel for recording, and then 1 mask that deals with arrays in all 4 channels. Bias, basically you're introducing a very high frequency that's so high that you can't hear it. You're sort of like sending in that hot inaudible signal onto the tape. Means that the audio signal, which is actually going to be a very tiny voltage, when it hits the magnetic tape, it leaves a better impression. The way I would suggest you think about it is, imagine you've got wax and you want to make a handprint. If the wax is at room temperature, you're not going to make any handprint. If the wax is absolutely hot, you can put your hand in, and then as soon as you pull it out, then the wax is just going to go back in. It's going to be like your hand was never there. But if we can get that wax at just the right temperature where you leave a handprint and then it comes out, then all the details there. In that analogy, then bias is like heating up the wax so that you can make a handprint. It's exciting the particles of ferric material or chrome material that are on the cassette enough so that when the audio signals hits there, then it makes a good impression and you make a good recording. Channels 1, 2, 3, 4 chord oscillator, and that's your erase oscillator for all 4. Because we've got a ribbon cable going from here. This area is going to control the stereo bus out and whether or not channel 4 is doing sync. And then these little tiny guys here, I think they're probably all and or nor, you know, basically little logic gates. They're like a little program that allows your piano touch transport buttons down here to kind of send information to this microcontroller brain here that will deal with all the stuff to do with playback, and then that's sent to this. This is the sending the power to the motors, and the motors respond, and that turns the cassette. This is a daughter pitch board, but the pitch alignment controls are here. I've got an L and an H, so low speed and high speed. That way, if we've got a known frequency on a tape, say we've got a tape we know that was recorded on a well-calibrated machine and it's 1000 hertz, we can put that in, and at high speed, we can adjust that, and the output from a frequency counter, we can tune that until it says 1000 hertz, and then we know that the tape player is playing at the right speed. And then if we flip it into low speed, and we can use the trim pot marked L, you know, it would be half speed, so we'd be looking for 500 hertz output if we've got a 1000 hertz tape. I initially was expecting to see those trim controls here on the pitch board. It's just the potentiometer for user adjustment fine tuning is associated with these 2 trim pots here. So I think that's roughly what all of this is doing.